Okay, cool. Yeah, so the program is basically finished. So it's going to be like a general strength program.
Okay.
Um, and I want to kind of aim it towards looking at what the what the ideal attributes that someone looking to improve in Quidditch would try to go for.
Yeah.
Kind of like if you could mold like a Frankenstein prototypical player, like what would they look like? So that's I'll ask you that at the end. Um, but
Yeah.
trying to base it off other sports, just because Quidditch is
Mm.
um, comes from so many different has so many different elements from different sports. So yeah, the
Yeah.
first thing I wanted to ask you was, what do you think are the are the most key factors that we can take from other sports?
I think it's all about like general pitch awareness. I think is the most underrated skill in Quidditch. And in all fairness, it's the difference between being a good player and a great player for any sport. I was actually talking about this today on a football group I'm part of. We were talking about Jeremy Lynch, one of the F2 freestylers, and there's
Oh
an
yeah,
interview. He's like Arsene Wenger said he's the one of the he is the best technical player. The ball is at his feet. He is the best player at the club, better than Henri, Pires, Bergkamp, any of these players. But when the ball's not at his feet, he's the worst because he didn't have the awareness of the game and how to interact and the work ethic. Whereas you look at someone like James Milner, who's in his 30s and still performing at a top level, outperforming some of the kids,
yeah,
because he doesn't have the luxury of youth. He can't go training. Yeah, I'll train really hard and then I'll maybe stretch and I'll be fine tomorrow because he's in his 30s. He has to really work hard to be able to keep up. But because he's got that ethic, that work ethic in terms of that. But it's the awareness when he gets on pitch. He understands the game. It's something you see that happens particularly in football and, well, American football are my two main sports, that the older a player gets, the worse their physical abilities go down in terms of like their fitness and their ability, their speed, but their like technical awareness of the game just improves so much. I think that's the biggest thing I think a lot of Quidditch players lack. They think very one-dimensional, where Quidditch is actually probably a more multi-dimensional sport than probably 90% of the ones out there.
yeah, yeah. I always think that it has the potential to be one of the most tactically nuanced games in compared to anything really.
Mm.
But that's a good example because I saw Jeremy Lynch in, I think he was doing like a non-league
Yeah,
game or something like that. And yeah, when he had the ball, he was
you can't play against him.
putting plays all over the place. But in the end, like his overall performance wasn't really spectacular. Like he fit in with the rest of some of the league people.
Yeah, like
Um,
he's a great individual player, but that's not what the sport is. Very few sports, or no team sport is an individual player. Even looking at something like American football, which is probably for my knowledge, the most single player sport in terms of if you are the quarterback, you always touch the ball on offense, and you have to sometimes carry the team. But if you can't throw, you've got running backs. You've got a 3-yard pass. There have been many quarterbacks in the league who can't throw 50 yards because they don't need to. For example, Tom Brady is arguably one of the greatest of all time in the game, let alone the quarterback position, and he throws 3 yards. That's it. That's all he does. He doesn't throw 50 yards every time. He's not Patrick Mahomes running around, or Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers who scrambles around and makes a 70-yard bomb on a dime and almost hits the ceiling. No, he throws 3 yards and he's playing in his 40s because he has understood the game. He knows he knows the game isn't designed to throw 40 yards at a time. Quidditch, for example, you don't need to be able to throw the length of the field. It does help for quick counters, but what's more important is making a right decision. If you can throw the length of the field, that's great. You've got the longest arm. You've got incredible strength, but you might be throwing to someone who's got a beat on them, or they might be double marked.
yeah,
There's better. So the decision-making ability way outranks and out the physical attributes needed to play a sport.
yeah. Let's let's go back to that then.
Yeah.
So if we break it down, what would you say most important non-physical aspects are, and then the physical. So we've got
So yeah, I
aim of
think I think beaters and chasers both have this need, and I think beaters are aware of it a lot more. Is pitch awareness, um, in terms of even if you don't have the ball, before like you're on attack, especially on attack, mostly even on defense sometimes, but you're on attack. You're setting up in the UK standard box formation. You could be the relief chaser or the crash chaser or technical or whatever the team person, secondary ball carrier. If you're just standing there looking at the ball carrier, you don't know if you're marked, which means you could be calling for the ball. They'll pass to you because they trust you, and the person who's marking you is actually in the throwing lane. They're going to jump in front, grab it, and go and score. Or you can have a beater right behind you. So the most important thing you can do when you think you're in a good position is to actually check if you're in a good position by looking around. Most people become so fixated on that quaffle or the blood jar if it's running towards you. You can like look around, take a second. The game is not it should be constant sprinting, but the game is not constant sprinting. The game is a light jog at most with intervals of high intensity. So when it's a light jog pace, look around. Think about what you're going to do the next step. So if you're currently marked, someone's man marking or there's a beater on you, you need to, if you've got a beater on you, maybe take a step out and take the beater away from you to create a massive space underneath where another chaser can come into. Or if you're marked by a chaser, you go, okay, let me think. I've seen this chaser play before. I know that I'm faster than them, or I'm stronger than them, or they're faster and stronger than me. If they're better than me, both faster and stronger, which means that I won't be able to get that ball, catch it before they can get there, I'm just going to stand up right out of the way and take one of their good defensive players out of the game. Or if you've never seen them play, maybe like start doing a little bit of like little dart sprints. See if you can out sprint them. If you've never seen them play, they've never marked you before. Like a little test, you're testing the waters. If you then realize actually I can beat them, but they're faster than me over 10 yards, but I've got that first 3 yard step, what you need to do is make space to have that 3 yard step. You need to trick them into thinking you're going one way and go the other. And then this is where the physical side of it comes into the training. It's the ability to change direction and go from standing still to sprinting as quick as possible, which I think is one of the key attributes in Quidditch.
Yeah. Even if you don't have a mismatch to start with, those little intangible things, that's where you make the mismatch.
Yeah, like there is a lot of players who are better than me in Quidditch physically. Like I've said this today actually, I was talking to Jay today. I said it's bad when I am not an athletic player. I don't like to run. I don't go to the gym. I don't lift weights. I don't go jogging. I don't do any of that shit. But the fact that I am one of the better players in the sport because I use my brain more than I use my body, I don't have to like. Alex can kill me. Rudy, you can kill me. Barker can kill me in a tackle. John Cooks could kill me in a tackle. Steve Busson could fold me in half in a tackle. Andrew Holt, Bill. But the best way to not get folded in half is to not get tackled, to use my head. Or if I know they're going to tackle me, don't have the ball in my hand, run at you and pass it off. Be aware of what I'm going to do before I do it.
I'll take the tackle and just take that player out of the game momentarily.
Yeah, but if I'm going to take the tackle, I know what I'm doing with the quaffle. If I'm running at you, and I know you're going to fold me in half, which is probably going to happen, and that's the right decision for you and the right decision for me. But I need to know what I'm doing before you hit me. If I'm going to run at you and I'm just going to hold onto the quaffle and hope that I can outstrength you, I've lost. I need to know, okay, do I have support chasers? Yes, no. Are they covered? Is there a beater on them? If there's a beater on them, running at you, getting hit, potentially getting hurt because you're a lot stronger than me, and passing it to someone who's just going to get beat out is a bit useless and a waste of an attack. I might as well take a shot, even if it's a riskier shot. Or if there is no support and it's just me versus you, I'm like, okay, well, you're going to fold me in half, but I've got a chance of you're not going to guard the hoops. So I'll have 3 unguarded hoops. I could maybe like run at you, pretend I'm going for the drive, and as you bend down to tackle me, I'm going to take a shot because you're not looking. So that's what I know I'm going to do. So before I even get to that point of contact where you hit me, I've already thought about the decision making. Even if I'm the slowest player in the world, I could walk at you, but I've already made that decision, and therefore I've like bested you effectively. Quidditch is a game of action and reaction, and you want to be the person who's taking action because it's quicker. Well, fair enough. You'll come prepared, Rudy. I've got a mic and everything.
Sorry, what did you say?
I said Quidditch is a game of action and reaction. So you need to be the one who's taking action and forcing the other team to react because it's quicker. If I know that I'm going to throw this pass, you don't know what I'm going to do. So you're reacting. The moment the ball is left my hand, you are reacting to that situation. You're looking where it's gone, where I know where it's gone before it's even gone there because I've made the decision.
And then so, like, if we look at trying to help players improve, what would you say are the best ways to improve that game awareness? Does it just come down to practice and experience, or are there any active ways that you can improve the non-physical side of the game?
I think I've not tried this, but it might be useful if you're on your own and you've got, say, a deck of cards and you just pick 8 cards and you memorize the cards and then you shuffle them. You put them face up on a table in certain arrangements. Doesn't matter how they're arranged, and you flip them face down. You look at them for a quick second. So you shuffle them, put them on a table in an arrangement, and then you flip them face up. Quickly look at them for 30 seconds and flip them face down, and try and guess and try and remember which ones are which. Because what that does, it improves your spatial awareness in terms of where things are in relation to each other. And that's effectively what the game is. It's understanding I describe sports as a series of pictures. It's identifying what the picture is and then what happens after that, because you've seen this picture before, so you know what the next picture is, and effectively that's the scenario. And in training, what people can do is you can do a half-court scrimmage, blow a whistle, everyone closes their eyes. You then ask someone, where is your nearest chaser? Or has Doug got a bludger? And if they can't answer it, which is fair enough, like it's not about knowing the answer.
Did I speak to you about that drill last year? I think I suggested that to someone.
I've done this drill before,
okay.
like 2 years ago. It's quite hard. It needs to be done a hell of a lot, but it is like, it's so good because what that does, if people know that there's a question coming, they start getting used to looking around, tracking where people are.
You just got to make sure there are no cheaters.
Yeah, but if they're cheating themselves.
Yeah.
I always say that.
Yeah.
What other drills would be good for that? Yeah, I think those are the two. Like if you're in a scenario, you can do that. If you're at your home, even if you haven't got a deck of cards, write down a bunch of names on paper or something and just put them face down and then flip them around, and then whatever cards you've got, as long as the back is the same, it doesn't matter. It's just about practicing the awareness, and add more cards if you're getting everyone each time. Make it so you don't get it right every time. Because if you can guess 20 cards positions, 7 other players on a pitch will be so easy.
Yeah, I can see how that would be good for memory. It might be a little bit more difficult with all the moving pieces on a Quidditch board. I was thinking of chess for some reason on a Quidditch pitch. But I think that seems like it would be also good to keep our old foggy brains moving along.
I think it's also good, like, because obviously a lot of people think training starts and stops when you get to training, but that's not true. Especially nowadays with computers and stuff. I know I sound about 9,000 years old there, but you can watch footage, you can pause it, you can watch an attack, predict what's going to happen and see if it plays out. You can pause just before the moment of attack as someone starts moving fast. You go, okay, cool. What would I do in that scenario if I'm the quaffle carrier? Or you watch it back and then you see it and you go, actually, okay, now let's watch it back. What should they have done?
Yeah, I think
there's no reason why training should start and stop in on the field or the gym, or if you don't like running or going to the gym like me, I despise both those activities You can train your mental side of the game, which I personally believe is a lot more important than the physical side. Anyone can become buff. Anyone can live in the gym. Anyone can do the Matt Croft.
Matt Croft's quite small, I would say.
Okay, so exactly. But anyone can become physically big. Not everyone can become smart. Becoming like game awareness smart, becoming sports smart is hard. If it was easy, then there would be so much more people who were intelligent than big in our sport. I'd say there's definitely bigger people. Like there's more strong people, big people, fast people in our sport than there are smart people in the sport.
Yeah, and so what I'm trying to do with this program is so my thinking is that if you could take your average person with the level of game intelligence that they currently have, and they can work on that in the ways we've discussed, maybe if you could take that person and then increase their physical potential, then there would be a net gain in that player's ability. So that's what I'm trying to hopefully do with this program. And so yeah, just going back to how training doesn't start when the whistle goes at training. What would you say? So there was a thread a few weeks ago, or maybe months ago, about people doing fitness training during the club training session, and how some people think that it's a waste of it's not effective time, and that should be used for drills and scrimmages and things like that. And other people were saying that it's a good way to improve the overall level of fitness of a team. What do you think about that?
I think it depends on how much time you've got and the aptitude of the players themselves. If you have a bunch of players who live in the gym already, who love exercising, who go running all the time, fitness training is a bit of fun more than anything else. I wouldn't really focus on it. There are more important things you can do. If you have a bunch of players who don't like going to the gym, who don't like running, who don't like fitness, which is fine, fitness training in the team training is really good, because it'll encourage people who don't normally do these things to work out, and they might enjoy it, and then they might want to go and do it on their own time.
Okay, so you see it as kind of like a gateway.
Situational. Yeah.
So what, meaning that the emphasis should ultimately be on you take time outside of training to do that fitness, and if you use fitness training in the club session, it's to try to move people towards that side.
Yeah. Like Quidditch is quite a difficult sport to play I call it the barrier to entry to play the sport. Football, you rock up, you have a ball and 2 people. That is the minimum requirement. You don't even need that. You need a ball. To play football, you need 1 ball. That's it. To play Quidditch, you need 3 hoops, 1 ball, 1 broom. And that's you just shooting at it. There's so much more you can do in football where you can't do in Quidditch. So if you are at training and you have multiple people, brooms, balls, hoops, and so on, you need to be exploiting that as the time. You don't have unlimited time. Most teams don't train more than 4 times a month. Some train twice a week, fair enough, they're lucky, but you need to be maximizing every minute, every second that you have with other people and all the equipment. So in that regards, I think fitness training is quite useless unless you're in a position or situation in your environment that you can't do Quidditch stuff. So for example, if you're in a gymnasium inside, it's very difficult to do Quidditch stuff because you can't do tackling. If you haven't got hoops that freestand, you can't really do that. You can do passing and stuff, which is still great, but that's when you do fitness stuff. But if you are in an environment where you've removed that barrier to entry, there is all the equipment you need, you should be doing Quidditch focused things, not just fitness stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I think it depends on what you're looking for really as a player. If you're a player that's actively looking to improve, then you should take the time outside of training in your own free time to do as much as you can, really. But
Yeah,
I do also agree with what you're saying about if you can't do anything. So I think, especially with this outbreak, it'll be interesting to see what teams and players come back into the season like, because there've been quite a few clubs who have just done fitness sessions because they weren't using quaffles or brooms or what have you. So I think that'll be quite interesting to see. So
during this period, I've done training with 4 different teams just to see what it's about. So I've done Vipers. I do get around, yeah. Did Vipers, Unspeakables, Raptors, and Werewolves. And for the most part, all the teams basically separated into pods with Werewolves, they had 2 pods, they had 2 drills simultaneously running, and they just changed the drill. Raptors had, I think, 5 pods. Yeah, I think they had 5 pods, and what they did is they had 5 drills, and I think 3 were fitness based, 2 were like physical Quidditch based, like they're half courts, doing different things, and you just rotated round. So they were doing a mix, and I think if you haven't got the facilities to do a normal Quidditch training session in regards to the equipment, only the equipment, you don't need to have a half court you could literally have a 6-player half court. You have 4v2, 4 chasers, 2 beaters, or you have 1 keeper, 1 beater, 4 chasers, or you have 2 chasers, 1 keeper, and 3 chasers. Like, you can mix it up with your 4 people, or you have 1 chaser, 1 beater, 3 chasers. You can mix up what you're doing if the barrier to entry is removed. If you have all the equipment, you should be using it. If you don't have the equipment, because you don't have enough equipment, then you should split up into pods and have some people using the equipment and other people not using the equipment. Rotate round. Like, again, have stations almost. It's like circuit training. Do circuit training, basically, where some of the circuits are fitness-based and some of the circuits are skill or Quidditch half courts or passing or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. And then I think it comes back to the idea that if you're not using the equipment, then you're basically just working on your physical self. As you said, it doesn't matter how big or fast you are. If you don't know what you're doing, then it's not going to work out well.
I think it's something that I think going forward, like especially with the Unspeakables, because normally they have such a large training pool in terms of 20 plus people at training, it's so difficult to coach 20 people simultaneously. Well, it's so much easier breaking it up into smaller groups and doing multiple different things and just rotating around. Doing a circuit training style thing might actually be better because people aren't standing around watching a lot more, because they're always doing something, which I found was really good. Obviously, during summer, it's fine to stand around and watch, but in the winter, if you're doing a half court and you've got 20 people, that's 8 people taken up. You've got, okay, fair enough, you take another half court, that's 16 people. You've got 4 people standing around doing nothing. In the dead of winter, that's so bad. So you should try and have them doing something as well.
Yeah.
Maybe just a passing and catching, 2 lines. They pass, they run, they pass, they run.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Then, so for people wanting to do something extra, I know you're not one of these people, but like, what would you?
I do other things. I do extra things. I just don't work
so,
out in the gym.
Yeah, no. So I'm coming to that. So,
okay.
I think because Quidditch is formed of so many different elements from different sports, playing other sports is a huge factor and a relatively simple way that you can build up transferable skills to improve. So to tie that in with maybe the gym or running, like what kind of things would you recommend players do to improve the physical aspect of the game, if not the mental aspect?
I think, like you said, playing other sports, the one thing that people in Quidditch, especially new players in Quidditch, don't do is communicate. Because when you start playing a sport, you don't understand the importance of communication in sports. it's so vital. And obviously, especially when you're watching sports at home, you can't hear the players talking because you see the crowds, which is something that recently, like the games that have been played on TV, if you watch it without the crowd noise, you can hear how loud they are because they're so used to shouting at each other to get over the crowd noise. You can hear the manager shouting.
Yeah.
He's got to communicate all the way the other side of the pitch. And it's something that, like, in sports that I think is taken, like, for granted. So for personally, I play football in American football. When I play football, I normally just play centre back because it's a comfortable position. I just like to control the game a bit more, and I can see everything. And then if I want to go forward, I can. And I get the good communication because I'm facing one way, and my teammate calls my name in return, or vice versa. My teammate's not looking at me, but I'm wide open. I go, yeah, I'm open. Gio's on the left, on your left, on your left, which transfers to Quidditch. Anything you can do to help your teammates, like if you're marked, no, I'm marked, not me, not this way. Little things like that come naturally once you've been playing sports for a long time. I've been playing for 20 odd years. You transfer it back into Quidditch. So if your Quidditch team is not meeting up because of you've just not got training, or you've not got a coach, you've not got the equipment, or you've already done training and you want something on a weekend because your team are only train on Saturdays, play some football, play some 5-a-side football, 6-a-side football, just do another sport. And in terms of if you aren't able to play other sports and you want to improve, but you don't, like, obviously you're going to have a gym program that you can just go to a park, and even if you haven't got cones, you can just bring extra t-shirts, bring t-shirts that can get dirty, stick them on the ground, and they're your cones. Practice changing direction, running at a cone and accelerating a different way, faking one way, doing the other, because going for a very long run is actually not that useful for Quidditch.
Yeah.
Quidditch is a high intensity sport. It's high bursts of speed as opposed to long runs of endurance. It's not a 90-minute football match where you have 3 subs, so 8 players have to play the entire time. It's more like American football where you have quick bursts of speed and then a break. Quidditch, sometimes you don't really get that break, which is why you get more subs, but that's the ideal version of the game, is played non-stop sprinting. So what you should train is non-stop sprinting. Is it anaerobic exercises, I think?
Yep.
Practice anaerobics.
Yeah, so that's something that I've been looking into quite a lot. And it's interesting you say American football because there are lots of discussions between high school and college coaches I've seen about changing the way that it's traditionally trained. So like at the summer camp, they have the big guys doing 110s and suicides and running all day basically, when in reality the players aren't really running for more than 6 or 10 seconds. So there's a lot of change in the way that coaches are looking at American football training.
I think with American football, particularly defenses probably should be running till they're tired and then keep running, because that's when you gain your grit or your mental fortitude, like
That's
something that I think a lot of a lot of players don't have because they're not used to playing sports. It's, what do you do when you're tired? The correct answer is to sub off, but that's not the correct answer, because your sub could be shit, or you might not have a sub. So you need to be able to dig in deeper. It's overtime. There's 30 seconds left and you are absolutely knackered. What do? I could just sub off and someone who is definitely worse than me could come on and we may lose a goal, we may lose the game. Or can I dig in and give that extra bit of energy? Can I find something inside of me that I didn't know was there? And I think that's something that, like, stuff like suicides, which I bloody hate, but they are so good for that. Having especially if you've got your team there support, like cheering you on, which I think is great. Like if you're doing exercises, having people doing suicide, or others on the side cheering them on, because that helps dig deeper in a game when there's 30 seconds left of overtime, or it's a tied game and you need that extra goal to push yourself out of range or something like that. that's when you need your team on the sidelines, and they will do that. Everyone's been at games where your team's been shouting on the sidelines, they've been cheering you on. So it's converting that energy there into that internal fortitude and giving yourself that grit and that determination to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it was the same when we did the bleep test during when we did that combine day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree on that point. But on the other point about going 120% and not taking a sub. So if it's the scenario where there's 30 seconds till overtime, yeah, maybe at that point I would say it's better to stay on.
That's the scenarios I meant. It's not a case of like, oh, you're 7 minutes into the game, you're quite tired. Oh, should I take a sub or not? No, you should definitely take a sub. That's not a moment where your grit is tested, in my opinion. Because you go off, someone worse comes on for you, for example, and you concede 2 goals. You can get those back because you're going to come back on in 3 minutes. So you've gone off at 7, you come back on at 10. You have 8 minutes before the snitch is released. You can get 2 goals back in 8 minutes if you are really dominating them in the first 10. What the fortitude and the grit comes in is when the odds are against you, or it's such a tight game, and there isn't the luxury of time. You see it in American football, they call it the 2-minute drill, which is in the last 2 minutes of the game, there's a stoppage. There's a automatic stoppage as close to 2 minutes when the ball goes, basically the ball becomes dead. And teams have specific plays written up to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands and onto the sidelines so the clock stops. It's about using as little time as possible. And if the ball stays in bounds and the clock keeps running, it's about that speediness, that quick recovery. That's when teams' fortitude is tested, especially on defense, because they haven't got that rest. The pace is dictated by the offense in that case. So running until you're tired and keeping going is great test for those last 2 minutes. And that translates to overtime in Quidditch, or the snitch on pitch in Quidditch when it's a tied game. Like sometimes, and I go in the main part of the game, main body of the game, take the sub because you need the rest. In that final snitch on pitch, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, dig deep. That is when your resolve is tested.
Yeah, and that's basically what the other side of those collegiate coaches are saying, that there's something about pushing the body to the limits that you can't really replicate in training unless these players are tired. What I was saying and what I've been writing about is that because I think you see it quite a lot in Quidditch, you get the superstar player that comes on for brims up and doesn't come off until 15 minutes.
You're trying to at me like this, Rudy. You're trying to at me.
No, I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking about in general.
Rudy, it's not my fault. We have a minimum quota of tattoos on pitch, and I have to fill them because you guys aren't getting tattoos yet. So,
one day, actually, no, not one day.
Oh, got it on the camera.
Yeah. So what I believe is that you're not only putting yourself at a disadvantage, but putting the team as a disadvantage, because if let's say you're the best beater on the team and you don't sub off all game, there are lots of high level teams that do that.
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're forcing that 10 out of 10 beater to play 18 minutes, which is probably doable. But if they're playing 18 minutes, they're not going to be playing at a 10 level. They're going to drop to a 9 or an 8 out of 10. And
even lower potentially.
Yeah, and if the opposition team has been intelligent with their sub management, then they're going to put on their 9 when they need to. And at that point, the objectively worse player is going to be at an advantage. Yeah. And also it means that the replacement beater, who, let's say they're 6 or 7 out of 10, they're going to perpetually stay at that level because they're not going to get game time experience.
Yeah.
And because that better player is playing tired, getting sloppy, making mistakes, is getting slower throughout the game, they may well drop to a 6. Or,
100%. I think it's something it's going to sound really weird. I think something wrong with the length of the game. I think the game is too short. Because you have players who don't need to sub for 18 minutes. I can name at least 10 off the top of my head without even trying, really, just in the UK game, let alone the European circuit. And I don't know anything about the American game, and I assume most of their players who I've seen are insane monsters, so they definitely don't need to sub for 18 minutes. If the game is 45 minutes long, at a minimum, there's no way someone can play that entire length. And again, the slight variation of coming off for 5 minutes is non-existent, because 5 minutes you've hemorrhaged 5 goals. Okay, that's a big deal. Losing 5 goals in 5 minutes is potentially, you could probably maybe lose 8 in 10 minutes. Maybe let's go 8 in 10 minutes, 8 in 5 minutes. That's the worst case scenario.
Hashtag Hasatepe 2019.
Indeed. I think it might have been 3 goals in probably about 3 minutes. So
I think we came back from 7 or 8 down. I think
we were 5 down.
5.
I think we were 5 down, and then I came on. I got 2 shots, and then they started guarding the shot. Matt came and just ran over them.
Yeah, pretty much.
But in a 45-minute game, that window there of like their best player coming off, or the player who's going to play for 18 minutes isn't going to play for 18 minutes, because the variance in terms of the win-loss margin is so much wider. It's not reliant on 1 or 2 goals. It might end up being reliant on 1 or 2 goals, but over the course of 45 minutes, not 18 minutes. So players, I think, will actually end up playing less time. I don't think if that happens, if the game becomes 45 minutes at minimum, no one would play for 18 minutes straight.
Yep.
People would play maybe 10 max.
Yeah.
But again, I think like teams, I think the smarter way, especially because they're not going to change the length of the game, the smarter way to adapt to that, if you've got those players who are superstars who can play 18 minutes, is changing the way your team plays around, not around them to make them play for 18 minutes, but adapting the play style so you slow the game down when they're off. Because again, if you're going to hemorrhage 8 goals in 5 minutes and they're off from 8, they come off for 8 minutes and they come back on at 13 minutes, that's a big margin. Like, you've lost 8 goals in those 5 minutes. They might not be able to carry you back into that. Say if you're winning 5, they've come off after 8 minutes and then they go back on at 13 and now it's 8-5. That's a big. The other team's momentum is going to carry them right through. So you need to mediate how you play as a team. Play it slower. Maybe that's when you bring your players who just can pass very far. Maybe that's when you bring on your beaters who don't take trades, who play it safe, who keep control. Like, maybe, I know, like, there was talks of specialist brooms up because of tall people and that stuff, and I still think there is potential for specialist brooms up. I think there were types of players, especially with beaters. There were offensive beaters and defensive beaters, and you can see it when people take trades. For example, in Unspeakables, Doug is an offensive beater, Ollie is a defensive beater. Doug will always try and initiate a trade or an attack, where Ollie will try and counter as opposed to being the aggressor.
I don't know. Ollie's got some spice to him. Like, I've seen some footage, and he's
Ollie.
aggressive.
It's not about being spicy. It's about your natural inclination.
He wants to trade. He wants to hit Ollie. We're talking about Ollie.
Ollie wants to Okay. Yeah, Ollie win. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think Ollie's natural inclination is to play it safer than to be aggressive. Drummond, for example, is go aggressive.
Yeah.
So, and I think if you know your player's natural inclination, and you know you have a player who's going to play for 18 minutes, you should have the varying styles of play to adapt to when they're not on the pitch, potentially.
Yeah. I think his name's Ethan Stern. He put out a midline episode that looked exactly at that. So there was this one team where they had it was a beater actually, this standout player, and they were talking about how the team mismanaged the substitutions basically, and it came down to a few margins where he was off for a couple of minutes when he should have been on, and because he had been on for too long previously, and it cost them the game basically. And then they fast forwarded to, I think maybe Ethan's own team, where they did exactly what you said. They slowed down the game when that key player wasn't on. Still got goals, still were playing to their best ability, but just changed the tempo to suit the personnel on pitch.
Yeah, and I think, like, for example, if in terms of if you have a dominant beater, maybe what you do is you have your better chasers on when they're off, because your dominant beater can make opportunities, can make no bludger situations. So you don't need the great chasers on the pitch, for example, at that time. So what you do is you get your smarter chasers, your passive, your slower chasers, not your slower chasers, but your chasers who are more like, who can make longer passes, for example, who are more secure in the catch. Because what you're going to do is you're just going to play it slow. You're not going to have beta superiority. So what might happen is they may get controlled. They may press you. So you need chasers who can deal with being pressed. You need chasers who are calm under pressure and who can make good passes under pressure to players who are going to catch under pressure, who can then pass again under pressure. As opposed to, it might not even be your best chasers. It just needs to be the person who's calm under pressure. And you can see it in training. If you ever watch like scrimmages or something, when there's a loose quaffle rolling towards a chaser or bouncing towards a chaser, and there's a beater running behind that, how is that person's body language? Are they like this or are they like this? If they're like this, they are taking that beat because they're going to move that quaffle. They're running towards the quaffle. They're not waiting for the quaffle to get there. They're running at the problem. They're running at the beater. That's why I say when we were doing our 3v2s in warm-ups last year, that's what I told to Barker. I went, a beater's power is having the bludger. The moment they don't have the bludger, their power is 0. So you need to make them get rid of that bludger. You need to take the power away from them because the power is fear. If you can run at a beater at them, not round them, if you run at a beater and you're basically saying, beat me, beat me, beat me, I've taken the decision out of their hands and also taken the fear out of their hands and taken the power out of their hands. I now have the power. They can beat me or I can walk past and score. It's their choice. And what they'll do is they'll beat me, but I know they're going to do that and I've already passed it off. So it's about, like we were saying, about taking that beat, taking that tackle. You need to make the action. You need to take action and force people to react. And I think that's like, in that moment when you need to slow it down, you need players who are going to be taking action, who are going to be assertive, who aren't going to wait for the quaffle to come to them on a bad pass, who are going to step towards that dangerous, who are going to step at the beater who's armed because they want to get that quaffle quicker to be able to make a pass. A lot of people will just stand there and wait for the beater to come towards them, and by the time the quaffle's at their feet, the beater's already on them. And oftentimes the beater will beat you out with a tap beat, and the quaffle hasn't even been touched.
Yeah. For me personally, I'm definitely not one of those considered quarterback kind of players. But
Grace under pressure.
I think I'm all right under pressure, but I definitely am a bit erratic, let's say. But I think one of the best thing, my favorite moment, I think, was EQT, the one that was in London, and it was the second time we played Raptors, one where we were coming back into it quite closely after Jay told us to turn the screw. And so we just messed up an attack. People were running back. Lucy Q was coming at me with a bludger, and I knew I was going to get beat out. But I saw the quaffle in front of me as I was running back, and I just picked it up, scooped it, passed it through my legs straight into Uti's hands, and Lucy's bludger went God knows where. I don't think we scored off it, but I think that was one of my favorite things I've done. But yeah, it's all about making the opponent uncomfortable and not being able to do what they want to do.
I was watching Cobra Kai earlier this week, and there was a great lesson actually in it that I thought was quite interesting. I really enjoyed it, yeah. Like he opened up the gym and loads of people went to join, and loads of people were scared of being hit. So he just had a session where everyone just got punched in the face. And I thought that was brilliant, because if you take away the fear of being hit in the face by being hit in the face, you know how hard it hurts. It's like paintballing. The first time you get shot is the worst. The second time hurts a bit less. So eventually you barely even feel it because you know what it feels like. Nothing hurts more than your imagination of it hurting.
Mm.
I can imagine being stabbed hurts a hell of a lot, don't get me wrong, but I can imagine being stabbed hurts probably way more than it actually does.
Can't really comment, but I can see why
But you know what I mean, like the thought process, and it's the same with being tackled or being beat. It's gonna hurt, and you know it's gonna hurt, and that's okay. Like, it's okay to be scared of being hurt, but
just getting over that fear.
it's okay to not want to be hit. I know that. I don't want. There's a reason I don't run at people who are bigger than me, because I don't want to be hit. I'm not an idiot. I know that John Cooks will fold me in half, so I run around him. I'm not a moron. The situation doesn't need me to run at someone. I'm not going to bloody run at them. Same with bludgers. But at the same time, if the situation demands it, I know that I'm going to be hit. I've accepted my fate. I've made a decision, but I know what I'm going to do when that happens anyway. So and I think that's what you need to do. And like, again, it's the mental side of the game. You need to overcome these perceived fears by doing in training. Literally, I think like when we was doing the beta bubble, when we were in the beta bubble on Speakers training a few weeks ago, and we did that firing line training where we just had to catch bludgers, and people were throwing them as hard as they can at you from fairly close. That is a great drill, and I think chasers should do that too. But chasers just get hit. You just have a line of people just throwing bludgers at you, and it'll hurt. But you know what? You get used to it.
Yeah.
Doug's nailed me in the face. Bill Origin's nailed me in the face a couple of times. Lucy's done it from fairly quite close, but it hurt. But I'm not dead.
Yeah, in powerlifting, so like when people are just getting into it and they're starting to increase their weight, something that's vital is the first time that you fail a squat or you fail a bench, and you're pushing up and you don't have the power anymore, and you just drop, and the ball will get caught on the safety racks, so you're fine. But it's that getting over that fear that will help you in subsequent sessions, because it's not the end of the world if you fail, or if the ball falls on you when you're benching, you get over it, and next time when you're in that 99% range, you're not gonna doubt yourself.
Be scared.
You're gonna push through.
It's is it a Chinese proverb, which is there are 1,000 lessons to be learned in defeat and none in victory.
Someone should have told that to Raptors at Northern.
Someone should have told that to LQC after Southern, but the point is that you, like, getting hit in the face is a loss. That's a defeat. I don't want to be hit in the face by a person or bludger, but I now learned something. I've learned at least one thing. I know how hard it hit, how much it hurts. If Doug throws his bludger as hard as he can, pretty close to my face, pretty close distance-wise to me, and hits me in the face, I know how hard that is. So next time, I'm not going to think it's harder than that. I've already experienced it. And it's the same. I think it's all just experiencing things. It's what I was telling you earlier about the series of pictures that sports is. The more you can be exposed to a scenario, the more it becomes ingrained, the more it becomes muscle memory, the better you will be the next time.
Yeah.
If I know, like, if I'm chasing and I'm up against, say, for example, who I played a lot, like I think on Troy Killywinks marks me a lot. I know exactly what Troy is going to do because I've played against him a lot. I've seen him play. Ben Malpass, I've seen him play, and I know the nuances of what they do. And I also know that if I take a little shuffle that way, they're going to come straight for the tackle. So that fake on Ben is not worth it, because he's not going to be bought by the fake, because he's not going to chase me. He's just going to hit me. So instead of trying to fake him out, I should probably commit to one way and outpace him. And I should probably commit to going this way because the ball's on my outside hand. Because when he hits me, he's right-handed. So he's going to get that wrap from the side, which means the ball's still in a throwable position, where if I go this way, he's going to hit me with his right hand this way. He can tie out my hand. And this is, I know this because I've played against him. I also know how right-handed players play because I'm right-handed. And the equal opposite is same for left-handed players. It's just understanding scenarios, and then when you're faced with that scenario, knowing what the potential outcome is. It's a tree diagram. It's okay. There is no bludgers, but no, there is 2 bludgers. What do I do? Do I attack? Failure. Do I be a bit more patient? Okay, so I'm being a bit more patient. What does patient looks like? Do I pass to my relief chaser? Well, they could be marked, so that's a failure. I can hold the ball a bit longer because there's no pressure on me, so I'm going to hold the ball a bit longer. Okay, now there's a beater coming at me. Decision. If I do nothing, I get beat out. Failure. If I pass to my secondary relief chaser, they're marked by someone better than them, or they've got a bludger on them. Failure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe go for a shot. There's 2 people guarding the hoops. Unlike very low % shot. Failure. There's 2 people guarding the hoops. That means there's 1 person definitely open. So pass to that person. Which person is it? Is it that one or that one? It's just having that awareness of the scenarios and acting on it. And again, if you're in training and you have the equipment, practice half-court scenarios, set up scenarios, like literally have people starting from standing still in certain positions and then run that again, run it back, run it till they can do it blindfolded. It's boring as fuck, but that is how you get better at sports. Doing things 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times.
Yeah. If you try and start from a faulty base, if you don't have the fundamentals down, then you're never going to be able to build on it. You're never going to be able to do
one of the
fancy
most successful penalty takers of all of football history is a player called Ruud van Nistelrooy.
Oh, he's my favorite player ever.
And what he would do is, I think David Beckham did the same thing, is after training, he would spend 4 hours taking penalties. And he went the same way every fucking time. He went to the keeper's right. Every keeper in the Premier League knew what he was doing. I think 1 out of 20 times he went down the middle. But you knew as a keeper, if you dive right, I have a slight chance. Because he practiced it so much, he practiced getting the perfect angle and the perfect power and the perfect placement that no keeper saved it. It's very difficult for keepers to save his penalties, even though they knew exactly what he was doing because he practiced it to a T. He could do them blindfolded. There's a player in American football who used to play called Antonio Brown. They had a route, he'd run an 8 curl. He's arguably the best route runner of all time. He would run 8 yards, curl, and stop. He did it again blindfolded, ran the curl. He was, I think, 2 inches out from where he'd stopped before. He was doing it. It wasn't like he was taking 3 steps. He was running 8 yards and then turning around. So he had to memorize what 8 yards is. He had to memorize the 180-degree turn, and he did it blindfolded because he has practiced that thousands upon thousands upon thousands of times. Obviously, I don't expect anyone in Quidditch to be able to do that. That is insane. But you can train to try and do that. If you're on your own, you can practice shooting at a spot. You could, even if you haven't got a broom, if you've got a ball, you can practice. You can literally go up to a bit of a tree or a wall, stick a bit of tape on there, and shoot at that shot. Shoot at that spot. Hit it 20 times in a row. Take a step back. Hit it 20 times. Keep doing it until you can hit it every time from 40 yards. That's the hoop. That's a person's hands. You're making that pass. Now try and do it on the run. Run towards it. Run away from it. Run alongside it.
Yeah. Just reminds me of Alberto at any training he was at, like during lunch breaks, during any pause, he'd just be at the hoops shooting and dunking.
For the first, the reason that me, Alberto, and Mac have great synergy is because for the first 6 months of me joining Quidditch, we just fucked about in the breaks, throwing balls to each other without looking sometimes. Like we'd do over the shoulders and what that does is without thinking, we innately learn each other's tendencies. I know if Alberto's going for a dunk, I know the speed at which he moves over the 4 steps to get to the hoops. I know his verticality. I know his reach. I know max reach. I know all these things because we just fucked about in training, because we did things 1,000 times, because we messed about. Just doing it is the most important bit. There's so much. Obviously, there's only so much you can do the mental side of the game. It's about practicing. Like squats, you can think the perfect technique. You can get the technique mentally down, but you need to put that into practice.
Yep. Yeah, translating that into a format that I can understand. I like it.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna let you go. But I'm gonna ask you two more questions.
Of course.
So if you could put together like some kind of Frankenstein
Okay.
composite player, what would they look like? So you could take maybe an arm from a certain sport,
Okay.
or a leg from a certain sport.
Oh, from different sports.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So
Okay.
that's one of the questions, and then
Okay. Cool.
we'll finish with different
Is
Quidditch
this
players.
for a Quidditch? This is to build the perfect Quidditch player.
Yeah, so like a utility player, they can keep, they can beat, they can chase.
Okay. I'd probably take, because the issue is you could go big, but then you don't get the speed because that's physically impossible.
Yeah, so that's the
Cool.
question basically.
Okay, sweet. I'd probably go Tom Brady's brain and decision-making ability. He is quite quick at making decisions. Or actually, for Quidditch, either Tom Brady or Andrea Pirlo's brain. Awareness is two of the best players in their sport of all time for awareness. In terms of throwing and tackling, I would probably go because they're both arms. You can't just have someone's tackling, someone else is throwing. Regrettably,
You can if you want, Gio. I'll let you. I'm a kind person.
do you know what I'll take? I'll take Julio Jones. Height, build. Like, in all fairness, I'll just take Julio Jones with Brady's brain, because so Julio is 6'6", I believe, quite tall, athletic. Has been times when his quarterback has thrown an interception and he's just tackled the player, like a really clean tackle. And his job isn't to tackle; he's a wide receiver. He's a mismatch nightmare because he is fast and tall. He isn't the stockiest of players, but Quidditch isn't typically a stocky. You don't need to be stocky. You're not stopping people who are running for 40 yards. They're maybe sprinting like 7 or 8. So you don't need that incredible power to be able to stop someone. You don't need like a linebacker. Yeah, like either Antonio Brown, not Antonio Brown. Julio Jones would probably be quite like the complete package. Yeah, maybe if I can change in his catching ability and maybe like Aaron Rodgers' throwing ability, because he's got a great throw. And what he can do is he can throw it from different angles. So he can do like a low side, high, and that is quite useful. That versatility in Quidditch, again, a lot of people don't train because it is very difficult. Is training versatility and throw. So I'm going to go for a shot. People do that. If I can do the same shot but a side, like a baseball pitch, like a sidearm, or as opposed to just doing that, I can completely avoid their arms. And the kicking, and we'll have the kicking ability of
definitely.
This year we'll go, and I'll have the kicking ability of David Beckham.
Okay, so you're going for shots. You're going for those long shots.
He can also make a nice pass. He can make a nice pass.
Yeah, he can. He can dish.
But I think it's a hard one because the complete player is actually not the best at anything. Because of like Quidditch it's not yet, but you can have such specializations in roles. Like you can have a thrower, a distributor, you can have a receiver, and you can have your point chaser. But if you're making the perfect all-rounder, they're not going to be the best distributor, best receiver, best point chaser. They have to be a bit of everything.
Yeah, that's something that I've written about a little bit. So it's just wondering whether Quidditch is at the stage, or will ever be at the stage, where we start to train specialized positions.
We do.
So
I think we do.
Because I don't know, because there is so much chaos, you're likely not going to be just a point chaser or just a behind the hoops receiver. Like, I do think that everybody needs to be able to do everything, but then is that taking away from the potential of what that really good, that really nippy receiver could be? If
I'd say 70-30, like 70% specialization, 30% general. For example, if we're playing a game and it's me, McCartney, you and Otti on pitch, me and McCartney are not going to be behind the super hoops receivers.
I don't know. Max.
No,
Max is
me
still
and Mac.
dangerous there.
Me and Mac.
Oh, the two of you.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm unguardable. You can't guard this. Who's marking me out the game? Please.
Okay, yeah, definitely not the two of you. Yeah.
But yeah, so and in that 4 is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I like either me and McCartney needs to be the ball carrier because that's what we're good at, and in that scenario, it probably should be me with the ball. And any one of you could play the relief, and the others can play receiver. So maybe in that scenario, if we're going to go out and train this weekend, I should just stand there and throw passes at you for an hour, and then we rotate it for you guys each do it for 20 minutes. So I will do the bulk of the throwing and the distributing, and you guys will do the bulk of the receiving, and then we switch it up, and you guys do a little bit of the distributing and a little bit of the receiving. So you should learn how to do it, but the key skills, like decision making of being a ball carrier, or the ability to break off a tight man marking defender, those are quite specialization of skills that you don't need to know. For example, like tackling, everyone should know tackling, but understanding how a ball carrier moves as a point defender is, I'd say, a specialization of a skill. Being able to read their movements and adapt to it, whereas as a hoop defender, you need to be able to read their movements to prepare for the shot. So it's a different level of movement that you need to do, that you're looking at. So you can have people who can become jack of all trades, and yes, we should train a bit of everything. But if you very clearly have a specialization, you should probably lean into that, because you will have a role on a team, and the more you can become that specialization, the quicker, the better up the more progression you will make up the substitution rotation ranks. You'll go from being the 3rd rotation because you're just the jack of all trades. So if you actually are probably a better receiver than other things, and you just work on that and work on that and work on that, you'll slowly move up to become number 1.
Yeah, but then again, I think it's that gray area of being a specialist in one area and then maybe being deficient in another area. Because if you're spending 80% of your time training this thing, then you're only giving 20% to this, and then maybe the team will look at it as if, okay, this person is excellent in attack. They can do this piece of attack amazingly, but then they become a liability on defense, or vice versa. Somebody who can.
But that's different. Like, you're assuming that the two are opposed. I am saying that they're the same in terms of the way you train. You don't train, okay, I am a great receiver. No, that's not what you're training. You're training, I'm a great receiver and I'm a great hoop defender. Or I'm a great receiver and a great point chaser. Or I'm a great receiver and a great man marker. Whatever your specialization is, there is a specialization on offense and a specialization on defense. If you don't have one on either, for example, if you haven't got a specialization on defense, you are just a good point chaser, hoop defender, man marker, what you will do is you will just fill a role on the defensive side, and the team will have defensive specialists with offensive averages against you. For example, I think it's fair to say that the best part of your game, Rudy, is probably defense.
Yeah, 100%. So what I'm saying then, So
for example, if it's me, you, Harry, and Otti on pitch as a 4, you, like, Otti is probably the all-rounder. Otti and me are probably the all-rounders in terms of both offense and defense. Like, fairly, we can play most positions and stuff. Probably Otti's shot stopping probably not great, but generic, can fill multiple roles. Harry, offensive specialist as a receiver, defensive, not probably shot stopper. You good offensive relief chaser, defensive point chaser. So you both have opposing specializations where his is offensive focused, yours is defensive focused. So what you do, you complement each other out to find that balance.
Yeah.
Me and Otti already here, so you guys are complementing each other. So in that defensive set, Harry might go on hoops. Maybe me and you might go point, and Otti can be the either the man marker or the or another hoop defender for having two. Or if there's a mismatch because they've just got very fast and they can outrun Otti, maybe Otti and you will go point, I'll go man mark, and Harry will stay on hoops.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is Quidditch at a point where we start to make that transition to double down on these specializations, so that we have so that you train someone to become a world-beating receiver, and then that will effectively mean that you're taking time away from them being taking time away from them training their shot or training that defense.
So I don't think I think you're taking time away from them training their shots, but you don't take time away from them training their defense, because in drills you got 20 minutes of half courts, you spend 10 minutes with one team attacking, 10 minutes with the other team attacking. So you both train both sets. And yes, your offense may be stronger than your defense or vice versa. So you then have to adapt your weaker side of the game. So for example, if I am a great receiver, but my tackling is awful, if I can't tackle and I just can't do it, then I need to adapt. I need to adapt my game. I need to realize, actually, shit, I can't tackle. What can I offer on the defense? So what I could offer, the other two main things on defense is shot stopping and man marking. So I need to become more good at one of them. If I am a shot stopper, I need to become the man marker and hope that we're doing a man marking style defense. So you're limiting your options. I think.
So that answers my question, I think,
Yeah.
because then the answer would be that no, Quidditch isn't ready for that. So
no, I think it is.
It wouldn't be like American football or netball, where you would have someone who has a job and does that job, and it doesn't really matter that they're not as good at the other things.
No, I think there is. It's like in football. Yes, there are attackers and defenders, and there are midfielders who are a bit of both. And I think that's the best analogy. Attackers are good at scoring or going forward, and the defending is shit. But
that's not, I'm talking about even more granular. So I'm talking about the difference between like a right back and a centre back, because you're not going to expect a centre back to be pacey.
No.
You may not. It's not the end of the world if a right back isn't great in the air.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about that level of granularity.
Okay. Yeah. No. So that's okay.
That centre back will be training different things to the right back.
Yeah.
Their training session will look very different.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm talking about for Quidditch.
And I think Quidditch is a bit harder because you have to play both ways.
Yeah.
You play both offense and defense. So it's very similar to my flag American football, because we play both ways. We play an offensive position and we play a defensive position. So on offense in my team, I normally play quarterback. On defense, I play safety. I prefer playing defense personally. I love getting interceptions. It's my favorite thing. It just fucking winds the other team up so much. But we still train both. We still practice both. So in terms of that specialization difference between a centre back and a right back is there, but they're both. But it's not to the same severity in regards to, because both of those positions are not expected to go and score goals. It's more like playing both ways in football. Like you see, if you ever seen Friday Night Lights, I think in season 3 or 4, they had a dwindling cast or something like that, and so they had players who were playing both ways, which means that you play offense and defense, which is what Quidditch is. So they will specialize as a receiver offensively and defensively a linebacker, for example, or a corner or a safety or an offensive guard, which they probably wouldn't do. But so they each have specializations, and they're two sides of the same coin, as opposed to being two different things. Where being a ball carrier and being a receiver are the same side of the coin, but very different coins.
Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about.
Okay,
so,
yeah. Your training as a receiver would be a detriment to your training as a ball carrier, but it would not be a detriment to you being a point defender or a hoop defender or a man marker.
Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about basically. So is Quidditch at a point where we need specialized chasers or specialized
Yes,
beaters?
we
So
have that already.
when someone turns up on their first day, would you get them to focus on becoming Andre and LQC, or you see them and they think, oh, you're a Ruben, because they can both do both.
Yep.
But then the potential is limited. If
I think
not limited, but
there's
room
you've put a
for,
cap.
yeah, exactly.
I think it is like, just see how they play. Like, for example, when I started playing Quidditch, I was a receiver. I played receiver and keeper a little bit when we started, but when we proper started playing the game, I was we played it was 1-3 offense. So you had one